Hey everyone, and welcome to the final episode of season one, Uncovering Hidden Healing. I'm your host, Arletha Lizana, and wow, what a journey it's been. I'm so grateful you've been with us every step as we explore the richness and depth of traditional healing practices from the African experience and African diaspora experience. The series wouldn't be possible without the collaboration of Morehouse School of Medicine, Sable Women, and Prometra International. So today is a special episode. As I said, it's the finale. So we're recapping and we're finishing up season one. So as you can see, I do not have a guest today. I am my own guest. So today I just wanted to tell you a little bit about my journey, as a healer. So who am I and why did I decide to do this series? And then we'll do a recap. We'll talk about all 12 episodes of the series and see which ones you guys liked best and see if you have any questions about the series or any questions for me. So let's go ahead and get started. So grab your tea. Where's my tea? It's here. So grab your tea, your water, your journal, and let's recap the journey we've been on together. And let me start by telling you a little bit about myself. So, when did I get into healing? I was thinking about it, like trying to pinpoint like an actual date, like when it actually happened. But what I can say, it's something that kind of like happened over time, like many people. And what we do know is like everybody's journey is different. It's way different. So I try to incorporate as many perspectives and as many people's different types of journeys, so we can kind of understand what it may look like. It may not look like. I think the important thing is just to really establish that everyone's journey, everyone's the way they become a healer or their healing is going to look a lot different. So for me, I think there were some signs early on as a child. I have to ask my mom, more about that. I'm also just learning about being neurodivergent, like literally in the last few weeks. And so now looking back on my childhood, I can kind of see, how there were some things in my childhood that could lead to that. And also some things in my childhood that could, oh yeah, she has some gifts. So I wasn't one of those children who, in particular had like a special gift. So I have friends who were able to see death or able to see, people who are sick early on. So they talk about, having dreams when they were in elementary school and so forth. So I don't remember that, anything like that per se. I just remember there were like some instances of things, that kind of came up during my childhood. So my mom did tell me, although my mom grew up Christian, my grandmother Christian, are both Baptist. She would go see someone who lived in a town outside of Pittsburgh called Aliquippa, and the person's name was Brother Hughes. And I remember that Brother Hughes used to have this card table, and he actually read cards, so like playing cards. And I know people that do that, as a healing method now. But he read cards, and he did tell my mother when I was a little girl that there was something special about me and that, things would be uncovered over time, and so forth. So, I didn't know about that. And my mom didn't tell me anything about that till, much later in my adulthood. And so early on, I didn't really know, I was healer. I would get these clues. So when I think I was like maybe in college and I had like my first astrology reading, one of my girlfriends was like, oh, you should get an astrology. I don't know anything about that. So I didn't really grow up, with the concepts of health and healing per se. We weren't really sick kids, like we didn't get sick a lot, but I attribute that to my grandmother, who's like a herbalist. But she would have us take cod liver oil and we would have to eat liver. I hated it. But, things that we know now are really, for good health, and she would have us wear an undershirt, for example, when it got cold. I'm originally from Pittsburgh, and when it was freezing, we would have to wear an undershirt, and we would have to wear that undershirt through the spring, so little things that I knew would keep us, healthy and healing, but, nothing that, we're going to teach you how to do this or that. So nothing like that. And so I had my first astrology reading in college, didn't know anything about that. And the astrologist said, yeah, you're one of those people, if, you're in traditional, African context, that they were come and get you when you're about 4 years old and take you and start teaching you different healing methodologies. And I was just kind of like, okay, like that didn't mean anything to me at the time period. I was just like, oh, okay, that sounds good. And then further on, in college, I was one of the founding members of the African sorority at Spelman College. I went to Spelman for undergraduate. So the African sorority was named ASET, African Sisterhood. So as a part of that, we had some advisors. And one of my advisors, and I think we spoke about this before, was Charles Finch. And that kind of led me down a whole different path of really studying African science and spirituality. So my dissertation, I graduated as a PhD, a master's and PhD in Africana Studies with an emphasis, and it was social science, emphasis in Africana Studies from Temple University. And my dissertation was on the Dogon and its science as spirituality. So I started learning, during that time period. So not only from Aset and learning from Charles Finch, but also in graduate school and learning about the Dogon and learning about science and then spiritual traditions. So, there were pieces here and there, that kind of led up to things and me studying. And then I took my first trip to Africa. I was invited to a conference. So the Sheikh Anta Diop University invited me to a conference to talk about my dissertation topic. First time in Africa, it was crazy. The ticket came like the day before. Like, I'm going to a foreign country. My French is terrible. Like, like I'm just there. So I get there and there are other African Americans that are there who are, presenting their research. Also, Sheikh Anta Diop's sons are there and a lot of his family members. So I'm, presenting my research and, all of that. And it was great. It was very eye-opening, affirming, and all of the things. And then Charles Finch told me while I was there, make sure you go visit Ma Fatu Sek. Okay, so it's a town really outside of Dakar called Rufisque. So I go to visit with a group of people, African Americans. We go visit Ma Fatu Sek. So she practices in the Lebu tradition in Senegal, but she's also Muslim. And so that's when we talk about different healing journeys, like how can you be both? You can, right? And so I go and visit her. And as soon as I get there, she's older, very old. And she's, like her sight, she's like blind, all of those things. She's like, come get up on the bed with me. And I was just like, okay. So it's like your grandmother's bed, and has the pillows and all that. So I get up on the bed behind her. She's doing a reading. And so she has a basket and she has like all of the cowries out and she's starting to divine. She takes my hand and puts it on there. And she was like, you'll be doing this, soon. And I was just like, again, just shocked, and she gave me a name and, told me that she would see me soon and that, I needed to start learning and all of that. And from there, it kind of just like, it was like every year. So I was going to Africa with my sister, Cheryl Grills, who presented earlier in this season, and learning about like Akan traditions, learning about Ifa, learning just, went to Cuba, learned about different spiritual traditions. And so I've been initiated, in different systems. And that might sound a little bit weird to some people. Some people are like, no, you can only be one thing. But even as a part of my readings and my divination, it says that I do need to learn and be initiated into different systems. I literally just did a recent one, and so again, I'm older now. So I'm like, this doesn't stop. So it's not like you do everything when you're younger and then you get older and you just sit there and practice. No, you still keep learning and the journey continues. So that's a little bit about me. So you guys may have some questions about my journey. Feel free, to pop those questions in the chat, and I'll answer those questions in a little bit. So I just wanted to get to the next part of it. So the reason why I wanted to do hidden healing. So some of you know, Stable Women is my business. I've been growing Stable Women for a while. So I started it when I ran away to Costa Rica for a year. Again, part of my healing and spiritual journey. But in Costa Rica, I started around 2011, 2012. I started Stable Women. And I kind of started it as, like wanting to learn more about traditional medicine and traditional healing, including herbs, but all of the modalities of traditional medicine and traditional healing. So I started by doing dinner parties with women. And some of you may recall some of those early dinner parties at my house. So not only in Costa Rica, but then when I moved back to Atlanta, I had these dinner parties. And we used to just kind of, food, of course, I love cooking for my friends and family. And then just like kind of discussing and learning about different spiritual topics, learning about natural medicine and so forth. And then from there I had a whole bunch of different kind of spin-offs or ideas. I had a girls garden club when I worked with young girls, and we planted, spiritual and medicinal gardens and kind of, talk through that. So we had, fun with that. I had the Spirit of Business retreat, with my niece, Ariel, where we help business owners and really understand the spirit, of business, like literally, and what spiritual things we can do, for ourselves, but also for our business and our communities. So many things kind of went into Sable Women. And I just love learning about natural and traditional medicine. Like that's my thing. So tomorrow, if someone gave me $1 million and they're like, hey, you don't have to do, you can do whatever you want. That's it tomorrow. I literally just take me to the jungle, take me to a forest somewhere and let me learn about medicine, pick medicine, learn about it. That's it. That's all I want to do, and help people, So that's why I wanted to do this series. So there are a lot of information out there on social media about different healing modalities and all that. And some of them are really good. I enjoy them. Some of them are not so good. Don't enjoy those. Do not recommend. But some of them are good. But I wanted to look at like how we see healing that are in different areas that we don't know is healing, per se. It's just something like we do every day. So really this series was about kind of uncovering, healing in places that we may not look. So you have the obvious different spiritual traditions, but as well as you have, there may be healing in poetry, and people, something people wouldn't necessarily think about. So that was why I wanted to do Hidden Healing. I had so much fun. As you can tell, I'm like, I laughed like I was just cracking up with every episode because it was so, I liked I liked how it was informal and we can just have a discussion and people could ask questions. I liked that it wasn't too long. It was, just an hour, a small bite of information, and, how we can reach out to some of our guests, and learn more. So I'll just talk a little bit, about some of the episodes. So again, we did 12. So we started with Ajisha Faye Jones in Ifa culture and storytelling. And so what I liked about this is, of course, introducing Ifa to our audience, which is a widespread practice, so we have many practitioners of Ifa and other, derivative spiritual systems. And so that's not new, but the culture and storytelling part, I think, was really important. So he introduced us to the wisdom of Ifa and how storytelling is such a vital part of cultural preservation and healing. So we learned how the stories are not just for entertainment, but also for passing down knowledge, creating community, and reconnecting with our ancestors. So he talked about the 256 Odus and the stories that came, with them. And I particularly love Ajisha Faye because not only does he tell the story of the Odu so you can get the message and get the information, but he also puts, kind of like a modern spin on it just to kind of help us understand. So he's like, yeah, this person who was going for divination, he had his swag and he was doing this. So it kind of really, helps you to resonate with the story and how to use that information for healing. So many people shared how this episode helped them reconnect with their roots and, storytelling and kind of like the storytelling we grew up with, like, Anansi the spider, many people, Brer Rabbit had those types of storytelling. One of my favorite books for my children were The People Could Fly. I love that book. And we had it on audio tape. So we used to listen to it going to school and everything. And so my kids hated that one. There was one about Taily Poe. It was like a little scary story, but generally The People Could Fly was great. And so it kind of reconnected me, to those stories and things that I learned about, as a kid. So our next episode was Dr. Omavi Bailey with sleep medicine. So unlocking rest and healing. And so he is the president of Permetra USA. And we talked about how sleep is something we take for granted, But really, Dr. Bailey taught us how crucial it is to holistic health. I was shocked. I was floored with that episode. So we learned how some ancient traditions approach sleep medicine and the importance of rest as a tool for physical, emotional, and spiritual healing. That sleep is like a reset. So what happens if we're not getting good sleep? And we learned that like how sleep just really affects all aspects of our health. Again, I was floored. And it's really important because we have a lot of us who are not, for whatever reason, due to trauma, due to health reasons, whatever reasons, we're not getting good sleep, and how that's impacting our health. So again, just another great episode, very eye-opening. Next, we had Nzinga Samuel, and she took us to school, literally. So in traditional healing in K through 12 education, again, you didn't think that was healing, right? We don't think about our teachers as healers, but hey, here we are. So we explored how holistic healing can transform the classroom. So Nzinga showed us that traditional healing practices can be integrated into education to create safe and healing spaces for students. It was super amazing talking to Nzinga. The learning environment, and she talked about how it can nurture both the mind and spirit, and how she was intentional about that in her school, Black Star, still is. And again, that was one of the episodes that people really resonated with. So we had a lot of teachers out there, or like who may have not considered themselves as healers, but found out very quickly. We also had many parents who talked about, trauma that they experienced in their school, as a child growing up in their education process, and how that may affect their children, and so what to do about that. So again, very powerful episode. So next we got to sit down with my big sister, Dr. Cheryl Grills, and she did mental health, community healing, and reparations. So this episode was very powerful and even emotional, as Dr. Grills broke down the importance of community health and how healing is not just an individual journey. It's a collective. She touched upon the concept of reparations, and again, that's huge, for us, and really to learn about the healing that needs to happen, through reparations, and how it ties into healing intergenerational trauma. So many people reached out after this episode, and it was sparked really deep and necessary conversations around health and healing and trauma and reparations, and how even reparations can be used to address intergenerational trauma. So again, powerful episode. All of them were powerful. So I'm going to say that after each one. Okay. So next we switched gears and dove into medical cannabis, path to healing, with Hugh Nicole Vanderhorst. So cannabis, again, we hear some things, and we're hearing about, different laws about cannabis use across the country. So we're hearing about cannabis. We knew that cannabis has always been a sacred plant. And Hugh Nicole gave us insight into the ancient medicinal uses, especially in African traditions. She opened up a dialogue about how we can continue to destigmatize cannabis, and rediscover its healing potential. And those of you who have businesses, how it can be incorporated into your healing businesses. So, again, powerful episode, a lot of information, really helped us understand the context of medical cannabis in this country, and the importance of it towards healing, So next we had Brendan Durrell, who treated us to a heart-opening episode on cacao and traditional medicine and healing. So again, cacao has long been known as the food of the gods, and Brendan shared how it's been used in traditional ceremonies to heal both the mind and body. I don't know about you, but I'm definitely adding cacao, to my self-care rituals. I tasted some, and I brought some with me, and I use it. My husband drinks it like every day. But we talked about it, and I really like that how he incorporated the different ways that he uses it. So he may add some almond milk or something like that to it, and how it becomes like a ritual for him in the morning, or whenever he needs that during the day. So, again, another episode opening our eyes, to how different types of, healing products have been used over time, and why they're important to us now, and how we can find the healing in those products, even though they may be, commercialized, and in some cases over commercialized. What was the origins of the products, and how we can use those for healing today. So I talked about a lot late. I need to drink some tea. I talked about a lot, right? But I'm gonna keep going. So next we had Musiki Scales, and he talked about the power of music and sound and the songs of Black folk, traditional healing through music. We learned about the healing properties of rhythm and sound and how Black music continues to be a source of spiritual and emotional healing for communities across the world. Music is medicine, and Musiki reminded us of that truth. I think my favorite part, I loved it all. Again, I was laughing the whole time, very entertaining. We talked about, history. That I've known Masiki for a long time. He's very widely known in the Atlanta and in the community in the United States. And we talked about Dr. Clark's song that he developed early on. So lots of memories. But most influential, he talked about the Blue Note and the history of the Blue Note, and I had no clue. My eyes were like, right? It was just such great information. So make sure all of these episodes that there are available on YouTube, so feel free to go back and, kind of really dive in. Lots of information, right? So next, we welcome Vanya Francis for maternal health, doula support, and holistic birth practices. So this episode was super nurturing. Vanya shared the importance of doulas and how maternal health can benefit from traditional practices and how to create empowered birth experiences for mothers, for fathers, really for the whole families. So it was very beautiful to see how holistic birth practices can make such a big difference, in the journey for motherhood and fatherhood. She talked about the teas that she developed and why she developed. She talked about her own, birthing stories, and how her children came into being. I mean, I thought it was just so powerful, and just really, the importance of doula support and yoga and movement, and teas and all of the things. And really to address, as we know, in this country, we have a huge maternal health crisis, particularly among people of color. So, it's really great talking to Vanya to figure out like how we can address this, from the standpoint of traditional and natural medicine. So let's see. Next, we did something special. We had a double session. So first we had Faiza Temi from Northern Ghana, and she talked about traditional healing in Northern Ghana. She shared how communities in her area continue to use ancient healing practices, passing down wisdom through generations to empower families and maintain health. She talked about being very young and learning about healing in her family. She comes from a family of healers. She talked about the power, in forestry and preserving natural medicines and preserving the forest. She talked about the power in community healing, which I thought was so important, really kind of understand how that, you're not just healing an individual, you're healing a community, and how the approach to healing is about community, and therefore that individual is also healed. So I thought that was super powerful. And so in the second part, we had Evans Owusu, who joined us and talked about traditional healing in Southern Ghana. So talked about Asante traditions, but really kind of from a different, lens. So he looked at culture. So he looked at Asante healing traditions and how storytelling and herbal medicine are still vital parts of everyday life in his community. So it was really good. So he was all over the place, had tons of stories about traditional medicine and healing in Ghana. And things that he witnessed and how he grew up and part of culture, and how sometimes we do things because our parents tell us to do them, like why you have to take a shower. I was always told you have to wash your feet at night before you get in the bed. And I didn't know. I'm thinking like my feet are just dirty. So I didn't, kind of know not only washing off the physical dirt of the day, but washing off the energy, and the spiritual dirt of the day. So I thought that the storytelling piece was very vital and important. So that was our double session. And so next I went all the way to Uganda with Dr. Sekajai. So Dr. Sekajai talked about traditional healing and natural medicine forestry in Uganda. So fascinating. He has a huge natural medicine forest, which people can go there to his natural medicine forest school. So it might be something you're interested in. But how the forests in Uganda hold many keys to traditional medicine, and why conservation is critical and crucial to preserving these healing practices. So he talked about his passion for environmental stewardship and just, just what we should do or what we can do, in that to conserve our natural and traditional medicine. He talked about the system of practice in Uganda, kind of gave us all a whole bunch of visuals around that practice and how we look at different spiritual entities and ancestors and how he became a healer himself. And last but not certainly least, we closed out with the banks. Our last episode last Sunday was Jifa Richards, who graced us with her wisdom on dance and sacred steps. So healing tradition through movement. So not just physical movement, but spiritual and emotional healing in action. I loved how she just talked about the importance of moving our body, because I think sometimes we forget that, especially during the pandemic. A lot of us, myself included, we're super stagnant, and not moving. I think I stopped dancing because, I wasn't going out to dance like I usually do. I'm a, house head, so I love house music. So I wasn't going out because of the pandemic, but I wasn't even dancing in the house. I really just stopped and was, super just, watching TV and stressing out like everyone else. And so when she talked about, just, movement as spiritual and emotional healing in action, I just thought that was so key, and connecting our body and helping us to release energy that no longer serves us. And then this final episode, you learned a little bit about me. So do you guys have any questions about me or about any of the other episodes that we had this season? So I'm super excited, to announce that we have season 2 already in the works. And trust me, it's going to be even more dynamic, more powerful, more healing. So you thought season 1 was something, and it was super fun. Just wait to see what we have in store for, next season. We also have the natural and traditional medicine course that I've spoke about before in conjunction with Morehouse School of Medicine and Saba Women and Permetra International. So that natural and traditional medicine certification is a 6-month course. So each month you take a course about natural and traditional medicine in Africa and the African diaspora. A lot of the people who you've witnessed on this Hidden Healing series are also a part of the course, where they have longer expanded lessons on their particular subject. And so the 6 months, you have a course every month. So you have 5 core courses, and then you have an elective course that you can take, and which includes, it's possible to take a study abroad course. So let's see if we have any messages or any, let's see if we have any questions from the audience. I'll give that a couple of minutes and sip on some tea. Let's see. So anybody out there who has a favorite questions, or do you have a favorite episode or something that you want to talk about? So give it a minute or two. So any questions or any particular episode that you found was helpful, information, any little bite of information that you felt was helpful? I feel like each of the episodes that we have, there was some kind of bite of information that could be a t-shirt. Like literally, I have 10 t-shirts that can come out of that. Such really good information for us to remember. So we'll see if there are any questions. So in the meantime, like I said, give it a couple minutes, but here's another one. So we have a question about when does the certification program start? So the next cohort, we are finishing up a cohort now. That cohort started in July and will end in December. So the next cohort begins in January. So you can start now, and we can give you information about the program. So I can make sure that the website and information is in the comments, so you'll have them. We're really excited about the certificate program. There's going to be a part 2. So we have the introductory certificate program, as I mentioned. It's 6 courses, so 5 core courses and an elective. It's 6 months. But we also have an advanced certificate program that we'll be launching as well in January. You would have to have taken the first one. So we have some people who are in the first one now, about 10 people, and they will be eligible to take the advanced course. The advanced course is really cool because not only is it's sort of like an apprenticeship program. So not only will you have, more advanced learning, in particular subjects, but in addition, you have the opportunity to study with a traditional healer, either in Africa and other parts of the Caribbean, or, even in the US. So I think that that's pretty cool, that you'll really be able to spend one-on-one time with a traditional healer. Okay, let's see. Questions. People said they're excited to dive deeper into the healers in this series. So yeah, so for each of the sessions, we listed all of the contact information for the healers. So they're happy, they have their own businesses, and so it's great for you to connect with them. And some of them offer trips, to Africa, initiations. Some of them offer doula service, maternal health services, dance services, so you heard there's a wide variety of services and products from the people who were featured on our series. Let's see. Next one. Can you talk more about some of the topics you want to explore in season 2? Yeah, some of them I'm gonna keep secret, but I really want to. One of the ones that I'm excited about is we're going to have an episode on seasoning and spices. Again, we don't think of spices and seasoning as healing. So we kind of think of them as just, it makes our food taste good, right? But we want to talk more about, talk to some experts and talk more about why we use seasoning, like how that came about, seasonings that are particular to Africa and the African diaspora, and how they're used in healing. So that's a big one for season 2. We're going to have a couple of them back. We definitely want to have Nzinga back, for example, education, because that was huge. So we've been getting requests for her to kind of break down, some of the things that she does with her students at Black Star and just in general. So we'll definitely have her back, and some of the other healers that came through in season 1. You may see them in season 2 with additional ideas for topics. So I just gave you one. I don't want to give them all away, but I gave you one. Let's see. So what advice do you have for healers in training? One thing is just make sure that what you're doing is resonating with you, right? And so when I talk to my daughters, for example, at this point, they're all grown and they're older, so they can choose what type of spiritual tradition they want to follow. So of course, when they're children, we guide them. So most children follow the spiritual tradition or religion of their parents, because the parents, tell them kind of like what to do. This is what we believe. These are our values. This is how we pray. This is how we do things. So, but I think there becomes a time when, as an adult, you have to decide if that resonates with you. Is that for you? Is that your path? Is that your journey? And also to realize that your journey may look different than someone else. Sometimes I feel like, Africans living in America, I feel that sometimes we think that initiations are about, power, like, oh, I'm this, type of priest, or I'm that type of priest. And really, we need to be looking at initiations as healing. It's not really about gaining power like that. It's about healing. So not only healing for themselves, a lot of times people that need to be initiated, it's about their personal healing. They somehow miss that sometimes. So it's about your personal healing first, and then as well as healing for your family, healing for your ancestral line, healing for your community, etc. So, I want people, that would be my advice, for healers in training, to focus on your healing journey. Realize it may not look like everyone else's healing journey. Realize it is definitely not about just gaining power, although you will gain some, but it's about the ethical uses of, gaining that power. It's about character. We talked about that in the Ifa series. It's bottom line. It's about having good character, right? Let's see. So Your outfits and accessories have looked so cute all season. Thank y'all. Okay, good. Maybe in season 2 you can talk about the healing power of self-expression or fashion. Ooh, that's a good one. I love to do that. So yeah, I'm into clothes, and I just like different, cultural clothes and things like that. So I've worn them for a long time, over 20 years. So, getting different clothes from different parts of Africa, fabrics and things like that. But I would love to talk about what some of the fabrics mean, and again, how we relate that to, health and healing. Why we wear certain fabrics, why white is so important to those who are being initiated and in spiritual traditions and things like that. Maybe why Lisa Ray wore white all that time for like years, right? So, yep, I think that's really good. I would love to talk about that. Let's see. Another comment, I glean valuable information from all sessions. Thank you for sharing this wide variety of information. You're welcome. Like I said, I learned a lot. Every time I'll be like, I didn't know that, so there were a lot of things, that, I learned. And even though I consider myself, like seasoned to a certain extent, I'm not as seasoned as my older sister, of course, or some of my, spiritual teachers, but, I've seen a lot, over the past, 30 years, I've seen a lot, but I feel like there's so much more that I can learn and see. I'm like a little kid, when it comes to spiritual tradition, I just want to learn. And so, I just, kind of consume the information. So it's like I'm learning, continual learn. It doesn't stop. So just because, maybe getting older, we all may be getting older, it doesn't mean you get to a pinnacle, of healing and you're an expert priest or priestess. I think the point is that you're always learning. And that's the fun part to me. Like I learn new things like every day, like constantly. And I think that that's important. So, okay. So that was a lot of questions. Anybody else have any questions or comments? So, like I said, this was fun. I had a really great time. Fun series, fun, fun, fun. You see, I'm just laughing. I tell my mom when I get off of the live, my family, like, I had a great time. So, anything that gives me this much energy, it has to be a good thing. And so we'll definitely continue it. Some ways to reach out with me, since we're always, ending the show with our guests on how you can reach out to them. Some ways you can reach out to me. So one, Sable Women. And so you can follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, on Pinterest, right? And YouTube. So you'll see the videos are on YouTube from the Hidden Healing Sessions. Also, if you want to just know more about me and what I do, I think the best way is Arletha.Lizana. So Arletha. It's not dot. No, Arletha Lizana. I'm sorry. Arletha, Arletha, Lizana, Lizana.com. And that's my website, but it brings in both of my businesses. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. Those of you who didn't know, I have a whole bunch of businesses, but there are two that I focus on. So one business is called Sable Women, and I talked about Sable Women. The other business is called Transforming Communities. So you can see both of those there. I'm also associate vice president and associate professor at Morehouse School of Medicine. And I think that that's also important that you kind of understand. I run an innovation lab. We develop products there for community health, so you'll see that theme, of community health, throughout. But it's another, way that you can kind of find out what I'm doing. And I think that it's important, that people know that there are other ways of living. Everyone is not Christian. And I want to make sure you guys know that that's okay. So they may look at me at work like, you're not Christian, like this whole time, because it's not something I just, go out and advertise. So I'm proud of being, a part of African traditional spirituality. I'm not ashamed of it or anything like that. It just wasn't something that I led with. But I think it's okay that people know, that, it's okay to follow the traditions of my ancestors. There's nothing wrong with it. And I think that we should be supportive of different types of spiritual traditions and religions. And even in certain parts of the world, it's okay to be both. So you can practice African traditional spirituality or African traditional religion and also be Muslim. You can practice it and also be Christian. So, it's really there's a lot of, negative information just out there. And all of that comes from Hollywood, and it comes from people non-understanding of our cultural traditions. So, and maybe that's an episode and we talk about on Hidden Healing, really, but I just want to make sure that you guys know it's okay to say, I practice, traditional healing, I practice African traditional spirituality, or what have you, or whatever you practice, and we'll embrace everyone. So you do not have to practice African traditional spirituality to listen to this series. Obviously, we talk about sleep medicine. That's just very important just for anybody, to learn about getting good sleep. So just examples. So I think I have answered all of it. I think that we had a good time this series. I think we had a good time today. Check me out on arlethalizana.com. Also, sablewomen.com. Let me know, in the comments if you have any additional questions. So I'm looking forward to seeing you in season 2. So we'll have a brief break, but we'll be back really soon. So have a great Sunday and take care. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.